Time to do what?
And we back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. We're better than ever. I am Mike Hughes, aka the Shy Kid. You are listening to Give Us a Shot Network. So make sure you give us a like, give us a follow before every episode begins. I like to get that out there so you don't have to hear me beg for it in between segments. But with that being said, man, we got an amazing guest today. A brother from Skytown, my guy doing amazing things, Joshua Hicks. Josh, how we feeling, baby?
My guy, how we doing, man?
Man, it's another day. It's another day, another dollar. We're getting closer to the NBA draft. 3-0 lead for Boston, which makes it even better for me because that means we can start talking more and more about Chicago Bulls basketball. And I'm sure as soon as we start talking about it, I'll start hating it again. But it's right now I miss them. Right now it's like, you kind of miss your ex, but you kind of forget how toxic she was. Like it's one of those instances. How are you, brother? How is it back in the building? Wintrust Arena, Skytown, Angel Reese, Camila Cardoso. You've had your first couple games the last few days. We've been sitting next to each other, kind of taking it all in. I mean, it's been a minute, man. How you been feeling?
Man, it's a whole different vibe. Let's put it that way. But it's been fun. It's been fun. It's an exciting time for Skytown. New head coach, new additions to ownership. Looks like a new direction from top to bottom. Even to how they handle security. Like it's literally a whole new direction from the top to the bottom that we just had not been accustomed to seeing. Man, it's always going to be that when you have so much nuance when you talk about legendary fame and status walking through your building. D Wade being part of your ownership. Chicago's own Teresa Weatherspoon, Hall of Fame player and coach, coming to lead your team. And on top of that, you add one of the most top two, if arguably number one, prolific young stars that's coming to this league in Angel Reese. I mean, the sky is literally the limit for this team moving forward. But obviously, it's going to take time. But the direction clearly is there, and the new era has begun to where summertime Shy just got that much more brighter, man, and I love it.
No, 100%. And like we talk about it so much. Like I remember being in almost physical tears when we found out what happened with Ka, and it was like it was so devastating because obviously Ka has meant so much for the city and she's been so much for us, and my relationship with her, with Chaz and all those dogs in Philly do amazing things, and it was tough to depart with that. And I was like, man, I just feel like this summer might not feel the same. It might be a totally different vibe. And Jeff Pagliocca has completely flipped it on its head, turned it into something that I would say has never been done at Wintrust Arena for the Chicago Sky. Even when they won a championship in 2021, these vibes weren't there. Even when CP was in the building, Polo, G Herbo, the Chicago Bears and Bulls players, everybody's out. I saw Lori Lightfoot here yesterday. I mean, it was crazy. Everything is cracking. And Lori may not have gotten the best welcome from Chicagoans, but I saw a lot of Chicagoans giving her love. So I thought that was dope. Also saw some that didn't, but it is what it is at the end of the day. Shout out Lori. But man, it's been dope, man. It's been really dope. It's been great chopping it up with you. My favorite part so far this season that I'm still getting used to is we're in post game media, and every single time you can hear the crowd right outside of the championship lounge just screaming top of their lungs anytime anybody walks out. Not even just Angel, not Camilla, not Teaspoon, who shout out Teaspoon, who stops every single time to shake up with fans. But it's just like really dope to see Dana and Diamond and everybody else get that love as well. And it kind of sucks at the same time for us because like we're mid sentence and then like the audio is just completely broken up by a million screams. But like that's the love, bro. Like that those are the things that we're not accustomed to normally seeing. I mean, this time last year, bro, you know what I mean? Like we were the last ones to leave. The second the game was over, probably half the stadium had already dipped. That's really how it felt. And it was like, it was distraught. It was upsetting, but it was just one of those things where it's just the kind of season everybody was having. You know what I mean? But it's been dope nonetheless, man. But let's get into it, man. Talk some NBA Bulls. I know me and you have been chopping it up about what's going to happen at 11, what's going to happen on draft night. I want to start it off with what we saw from the 2023-2024 season. Now, I will say the highlight for me was I got to be there. It was right after Zach Lavine went down, very early on in the season. I believe this was October. Me and my boy Coop, we were like, man, let's go to the game. Bucks, Dame's here, Giannis is here. We're gonna see a good show no matter what. Bulls probably getting dropped by 50. Here comes Alex Caruso to force OT. Here comes Kobe White with a phenomenal game. And the Bulls end up winning like 9 straight after that. I mean, they went on this run where even though it was a short period of time for me, it was like I could see positive things occurring. I could see Kobe White's emergence as,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, the most improved player of the year. I don't know how you jump from 10 points and in a starting role, shooting over 40% from 3 in December, and you're not the most improved player, but the guy who averages 5 more points just because he's in Philly. I don't know. That's neither here nor there. But that was for me, man. Seeing Io, seeing Kobe, seeing a little bit of Dalen Terry, these guys just continuing to grow and continuing to develop was my favorite part of the year. But what was your takeaway from the 2023-2024 season, whether it's good or bad?
That's a couple of things. Obviously, number one, you got to be positive about Kobe White. And the fact that you got him on as cheap of a deal as you did, to see that type of growth and talent to where, especially with this new media deal coming in, oh my gosh, it's literally like taking a piece of cake from the actual cake layer itself. It's just it's the perfect slice for what the Bulls are looking for, because of the fact that at the end of the day, Kobe White, like you mentioned, he has emerged. He has shown that not only can he be a continued scorer in this league, but he actually can be a point guard. That was the question mark of Kobe White ever since he got to Chicago, was, is he really a true point guard for the system that the coaching staff at that time and Jim Boylen wanted for Kobe White? And obviously Jim Boylen, we know, thank God that he ain't here no more.
Man,
But
is it any better, Josh? Let's be honest. Is it any better?
it's a little bit better. At least we don't have player committees anymore, so we're okay with that, right? But at the end of the day, though, even with Billy Donovan, there was the question marks that was there. Can Kobe White lead this team? And he's shown that technically, yeah, he can. And yes, I agree, he should have been most improved player of the year. That should have been a given, hands down. But he's shown, more importantly, he can lead a team as the point guard of the future for this franchise. And he did so by averaging around 6 assists a game, which is a high for him consistently throughout his career. So the positives were there for Kobe White. And you can tell that when Zach Lavine went down, the team started to thrive more on the floor because the offense was so flowing. When you talk about play, just ball movement, playing off the ball, especially Kobe White, when moments arise, he showed to be that clutch dude that you can pair with a DeMar DeRozan. But it also showed the realities of the Bulls. Still, either way, we suck. It's just you can't hide that. It doesn't matter what the franchise did. That you talk about mediocrity at its finest. I mean, you talk from keeping Billy Donovan and giving him secret extensions to, saying you're going to completely transform the roster, but you only really made 2 to 3 moves that really didn't move the needle for anything. And a lot of lapses to where if it's not one thing, it's another. The first year with Billy Donovan, offense was great. Defense was just terrible. And then the next year, defense is great. Offense is just terrible. The next year, you're in the middle of everything. It's just very average basketball that no matter what, you were not going to get out of the play-in situation, in which we knew the Bulls, unfortunately, just same results as last year. Yep. So what does that mean? It means that we're going to be average for quite some time at this point, because we are in an insane franchise. We are doing the same things, expecting different results. And unfortunately, that's going to be the overshadowing mark heading into this offseason of what the narrative of the Bulls franchise is going to be. And we can't hide that. That's the thing that Chicago sports fans, we should not neglect, is the fact that, yes, there are some positives this season. Patrick Williams even emerged in some cases. He has slowly but sure grew in some areas. And obviously Io as well. But at the same time, bro, it's not leading to wins. It's not leading to playoff experiences. It's not leading to deep playoff runs that we are expecting, and as Bulls fans should expect, because of what winning really meant to this franchise, especially with the history of who did it, the teams that did it, and the GOAT himself that led that movement. you that's the standard you got to get back to. And the fact that the Bulls are not at that standard or nowhere near that standard and accepting the mediocrity of where we are right now tells me that at the end of the day, we should continue to expect the same things. Now, obviously, they made coaching changes. Billy's still there.
Right.
So, you got to start questioning whether or not if it's really Billy Donovan that should be on the hot seat soon. But they're
Well,
making it.
here's what I want to ask you though, because
Yeah.
here's the thing that like this was the hottest seat, if not, I mean, this was super hot fire, bro. I mean, this shit was Takis meets hot Cheetos. It was an extravagant, like I don't even know what words to put into how fucking hot this seat was. And we can swear on here, Josh, every here and there. So it's all good. Uh Mark Eversley not
Yeah.
only is remaining a Chicago Bull, but gets extended. If you want to make the argument Arturas should stay because it was the right formula. Guys just were injured and things just didn't work out the right way. Cool. If you want to say, hey, Billy did a solid job. He brought the Bulls from the playoffs after a 5-year drought. Cool. Mark Eversley hasn't done a damn thing for this organization and gets an extension. How did you feel about the extension for Mark? Because I was under the impression that he was going to take a job as a general manager elsewhere. That's what I think a lot of fans did think when the rumors were heating up. And I welcomed it. I told him, I texted him, hey, I'll drive you there myself, brother. And for legal reasons, I'm kidding. But like I was so down. I was like, I'll help you pack, bro. Like it's cool. Like I have no problem with it. Where are you at with that extension? Is that just another Jerry Reinsdorf move of helping out one of his guys? Or do you think somehow, some way, the man who hasn't done his job over the last 3-4 years is suddenly going to figure it out?
Well, if you're gonna question that, you might as well question Arturas Karnisovas too, because
I'll say the seat's hot. The seat's hot.
yeah,
It's just that one was way hotter. You know what I mean? Like
right.
it was, to me, it was like, okay, well, you brought in Lonzo, DeMar, Caruso, woo, traded for Vooch, whatever. That's fine. But your guy over here, I mean, what am I supposed to praise you for? Staying under the luxury tax? Congratulations. You know what I
Well,
mean? Like making
yeah.
Zach paid $50 million a year. Congratulations, you played yourself. Like I don't know. How did you see anything from that? Did you think they were gonna move on from him?
Nah, I didn't think they were gonna move on from him. I think, if anything, this showed that Mark was so willing to move on himself compared to the team actually keeping him. Just because, let's be serious. The only When you talk about the rumors circles about Mark Eversley leaving the Bulls for other jobs, what was the one job that he actually got the interview for? The Detroit Pistons. Where are
Right.
the Detroit Pistons right now? Dead last in the league.
Yeah.
You telling me that you want to go to a team that's literally the dead last in the league when you can at least stay in Chicago and
The
keep the same stuff?
Chicago Bulls.
The Chicago Bulls, and stay where you at. You ain't gotta do nothing else, and you set for life. I mean, nah, come on now. It just didn't make sense. So what that tells me is that Mark Eversley was so willing to go somewhere else outside of Chicago to that Detroit, the bottom of the pit, was that appeasing to him? That tells me that there's some sort of disconnect going on between Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley as far as the direction where this team is going to go. The
Right.
fact that he's willing to stay shows me that they either had to reconcile the differences, or, like you said in previous years, tag team. 1 year is you, 1 year you got this, the next year you got this. We'll see where this goes. It's no different from what we saw with the Garpax era.
Right.
1 year, John Paxson, let me hire my guy. The next year, oh, your guy didn't work. Okay, let me hire my guy. It's a lot of back and forth tandeming that's obviously was a concern within the Garpax era, but became such an essential process to how the functioning of the front office was going to be. I'm not saying that's the case right now, but it does feel that way, especially since that extension came so quickly and under the radar in ways that, Mark Eversley was willing to depart from this franchise for.
Mm-hmm.
That it speaks volumes as to how all that went down and the secrecy behind these deals. This is now the third deal that they have secretly held from us and not put out to the public saying, oh, we re-signed Billy Donovan. Oh, we re-signed Arturas Karnisovas. And of course, the brother gets the last end of the pool hole and says, hey, we decided to re-sign the black guy. That's pretty much what it sounds like when you go through this process. And you're wondering, why are they so secret? This clearly speaks Jerry Reinsdorf. It screams mom and pop shop in Jerry Reinsdorf and how they do their operations. The problem is, I guess I wouldn't have a problem if it had winning attached to it. We've been losing, and that's the thing that's frustrating about this process. You can't keep doing the same things, making minor tweaks here and there, and expect different results. That's
Right.
literally the definition of insanity. And we have been insane for over a decade. So therefore, if you want to make major changes, you want to win, you gotta make major changes and make big swings. Big swings is having questioning Billy Donovan on a hot seat right now. Because clearly whatever you give him is not going past the play-in tournament.
Right.
You got to question Arturas Carnosovas and Mark Eversley as far as the roster makeup, because they have not changed the roster drastically since they first got in this seat. Okay, since they first got there and made a drastic change. Oh, they gave the Bulls everything that they gave Bulls fans everything that they wanted, everything that they need. But they've been stagnant ever since. And because they've been stagnant, you got the same results of that stagnation. There's nothing, and honestly, you can't expect the same thing this season because of the fact of that luxury tax situation, unless you really do get rid of Zach and give
Right.
yourself a chance.
I think
So,
it's even worse to your point. Like, I mean, we talked about it and we break it down all the time. What's the one thing in your opinion that Arturas specifically, because I don't want to just throw everything at Mark. What's the one thing Arturas has neglected the entire time being a part of the Bulls organization?
man, that's a good question.
I'm giving
Um,
3-point shooting all day. I mean, we haven't had a legit. I mean, Kobe's great, but Kobe just figured it out. You know what I mean? Like, you are praying that Kobe White figures it out, because if he didn't have the season he had, I think we're having a much different conversation right now about who's in the building and who's not. And I think that's something. I mean, come on, man, you bring in Torrey Craig. You know what I mean? And when you really break it down and you look at all, I mean, Torrey Craig, I love. He's a great 3-and-D guy. He does what he needs to do to create spacing. He's great on defense. He's not a liability whatsoever. But this isn't Torrey Craig 2019. This is Torrey Craig 2024. And it's like, you're asking him to do a lot with a little. He doesn't have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker at will to just allow him to be himself. You're putting him in situations he can't be in. I have yet to see this team outside of Lonzo Ball, who, even when you signed him, wasn't great at shooting from three. I mean, he came in kind of towards the end of that Pelicans contract and kind of started to figure it out, fix his jumper a little bit. It was looking a little nice for Zoe. I can't lie to you. And then he was shooting the lights out the ball in his first half of the year in Chicago, which was his only 30 something games in Chicago. And it's like you kind of just you ride those coattails of that 2021 team. And I get it. I mean, it was a lot of fun. I remember being there in person right before everybody and their mama got COVID. It was Bulls versus Hornets, LaMelo versus Lonzo. It was the Bulls were top 3 in the East. It was literally the best atmosphere I've been in since the Derrick Rose days. Obviously, I'm born in 2000, so I haven't experienced the Jordan era. But I think, man, Bulls fans showed up and they showed out that entire season because we thought for a second that we had something. And that, to me, I mean, I hadn't felt that way since D Wade, Rondo, and Jimmy. I mean, I really hadn't. And that's one of the things for me where it's like you had the pieces: Caruso, Zach, Lonzo, DeMar, Vooch. I mean, you trade Franz Wagner and Wendell in pieces for Vooch. And he's supposed to be that guy. Now, did Vooch have inflated stats in Orlando, and that's why it didn't translate, or is it because of aging and just digressing? I mean, there's so many levels to why Vooch hasn't panned out the way we want him to. But I think at the end of the day, the only thing I can pinpoint is the depth was horrible the entire time. I mean, Javon Carter, you know what I mean? What are we talking? Dalen Terry, Andre Drummond, who had a Dennis Rodman type season for 10 plus games out of the year for a 10-game stretch. This guy was averaging like 20 and 15. I mean, Andre was doing his thing for a little bit when Vooch was out. I'll give him that. Dre's crazy. And I want Dre on a championship team. He deserves it. But man, for me, I just think like we've talked about it before about the Sky team. The Sky team from top to bottom, this is no shot at anybody. 1 through 5, they're great. But what makes them so special is having that spark off the bench, that Kennedy Carter. You know what I mean? That Lindsey Allen. You know what I mean? That Elizabeth Williams. We could do it all day. There's so many different levels to what makes a great ball club. And the Reinsdorfs literally say, "Oh, you want big names to sell jerseys? We can get you that, but we can't get you a decent bench. A decent bench, I should say. We can't get you a championship caliber roster. We'll do just enough to sell tickets, but not enough to win a championship." And I want to say to your final point, I think the insanity thing is crazy because what's crazier than doing that is me every September getting reeled back in and believing that maybe this time it'll work. And that as a Bulls fan, we got to stop. We got to stop. I mean, I don't like the narrative of, man, if you don't like it, bro, just stop going to games. If you don't, man, just stop. Just like boycott the Bulls. Chicagoans will never do that. This is the house that Jordan built. People are coming from all around the world just to see that Jordan statue, just to experience the UC, just to experience Chicago hoops, because you know better than anybody how deep Chicago hoops goes.
Yeah.
It's one of those things for me where that's just this isn't the Oakland A's, brother, and this isn't, respectfully. I love baseball.
Yeah.
Baseball is my number one passion, but it's not baseball. You know what I mean? Like, there's definitely a multitude of reasons to where I could say this is why I can't go to today's 120 game on a Tuesday. You know what I mean? I'm either working or doing something else. Man, Tuesday night, Giannis is in town. Bulls 7:30 start. I'd be crazy not to go. So it's just one of those things. So I'm with you, man. But I think I want to ask you this before we get into the offseason, before we get into, because I know so many people probably left already because we're still talking about last year and everyone's tired of hearing about it. Man, if there was even an Eastern Conference Finals appearance attached to this unit, do you look at it differently from that insanity standpoint? Because I know a lot of people who are still hanging on to that Eastern Conference Finals appearance from Trae Young just a few years ago. Oh, you can't break them up. They were right there. Just let them get there. Do you think that would have made a difference if this team, for even one season, went deep into the playoffs? Or do you think it's just time to blow it up?
I think it would have made a difference, but it doesn't change the fact that you kind of still probably need to blow it up, right? The Bulls, the front office is tied to their emotional feelings. And when they have feelings with players, it's like family. You want to make it work. You want to try to do everything you can to make it work. We can't just let you go and things of that sort. But sometimes you got to break that girl off, man. You gotta break it off. Like, it's unfortunate. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna be painful. But what is your standard? What is the goal here that we're trying to achieve? If the goal here is championship basketball, you've now had at least 3 years with this same group, and you have seen that each of those 3 years you have not made it past the first round of the playoffs, and you haven't even made it back in the first round of the playoffs since the first time they all came together. That tells you that this formula is clearly not working, and something needs to change. And if it's any other team like the Charlotte Hornets or something like that, okay, cool. They're not accustomed to winning. They're not expecting to win like that. This is the Chicago Bulls,
right?
Top 3 media market in the world, big business. On top of the fact that we have top 5 in championship rings, one of the last few teams to only three-peat, and we did it twice. The standard of championship basketball is different when you come here. It should be different when you come here. If you got 3 years to make something work and it don't happen, you got to move on, man. You got to move on. She's not the one you're supposed to be married to. Let her be free to go to somebody else.
I'm with it. Your familiarity is the killer of most men in the world, most humans in the world. I won't just single out the men, but you're so comfortable with being comfortable that you don't want to be uncomfortable. And I think that's when you really grow. And here's my problem though with being uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable with not having that girl, with not having Michael Jordan, because when you look at the Bulls organization throughout its years, I don't think Michael Jordan was the problem, and that, obviously that's not a hot take. I mean, that's the GOAT, but we're the toxic girl, Josh. That's really what it comes down. I mean, you look at the entirety of Bulls history before and after Jordan. Before Jordan, we were nothing. After Jordan, we've been nothing. And it took what was it? Correct me if I'm wrong, because I want to make sure I get it right. Was it a 1.3% chance is the only reason Bulls basketball has been relevant in getting Derrick Rose in that lottery? We had like a 1.3% chance?
I think it was like either 1.3. It was like 1.6 or 1.9 or something like that.
Something ridiculous.
It was under 2%.
It was. I don't even know how to put into words what that was, other than luck. I mean, there's no and you still almost fucked it up because you almost took Beasley.
Ooh, yeah.
I don't know. Rose's brother got arrested before. I don't care.
Right.
Like, we're not gonna spend too much time on that, but like, That's the shit I'm talking about. Is like, oh man, Derrick Rose just fell into our lap. The Windy City assassin, the Chicago native, Simeon's finest. I don't know, man. I don't like his brother. What the fuck? What? That's Bulls basketball.
Yep.
That like we could as fans, as Chicagoans, we can always say, now Bulls basketball is Derrick Rose, Jimmy Butler, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant and company. Maybe not Horace. Let's say Dennis Rodman. But those are the guys we love.
Yeah.
Bulls basketball and how they operate is exactly that right there. That description of, I don't know, we don't like his brother. That's Bulls basketball. Oh, Michael Porter Jr. I don't know. He's got a bad back. Let's take Wendell Carter Jr. What? Oh man, so many great players on the board. I like Patrick Williams. He's never played a day. What do we? Whoa! We can do this time and time again on how many times we've messed up. How many times you look back on it, you could say, man, we could have had Tyrese Halliburton. We could have
Yeah.
had Tyrese Maxey. We could have had
Yeah.
all the and sure, you know what I mean? Like if my aunt had an Adam's apple, she'd be my uncle. We could do the if game all day long. But at the end of the day, man, we can't live in that reality. But the fact of the matter is, year in and year out, after the 90s, before the 90s, we just haven't been able to sustain success. And that's what, shout out to Jerry Krause, shout out to Michael Jordan, shout out to the whole
Mm-hmm.
90s Bulls organization, because they were able to take one of the worst owners in all of sports and both sides in
Yeah.
baseball and basketball. Cubs aren't any better right now. I think we combined like 26 wins between the Cubs and the Sox right now for the last 30 days. So shout out to
Yeah.
them. Shout out Chicago baseball. But man, like I love your point about letting her go. But the problem was the entire time you were saying that, I'm like, I gotta let this team go. I'm not thinking of letting go of the girl, which is Zach Lavine. I'm thinking, man, maybe it's us. Maybe, but as I'm never gonna, I will ride this team until the day I die, till the day I'm in my box. Like I can't, you know what I mean? Like 6 feet under, I will be seeing red. That's what it is. No
Yeah.
pun intended. But I mean, like that's what it comes down to, man. But listen, today I invited Josh on the show to get his perfect analysis of what the Chicago Bulls need to do this offseason to maybe let's not say become contenders, but get on the right path. How do we change things? I want to start off Zach Lavine. Zach Lavine is the biggest question mark right now because you don't know if one, he is going to make it to the beginning of next season, or
Mm-hmm.
two, is he even going to play next season if he is still here? So I want to ask you, where are you at right now in the Zach Lavine sweepstakes, in the market for Zach Lavine? Do you think this is going to be a Jimmy Butler type? We're going to trade him on draft night. Maybe we'll trade up. Maybe we just dump him for whatever. How do you see that going? And do you think it could be drawn out all the way up to training camp or even the preseason or beyond?
Yeah. Zach's gonna be gone. It's time. It was just one of those things where they just got tired of each other and they just want the divorce. Like it's inevitable. It's going to happen. When really is the question mark? Because when you talk about how the Bulls were handling this situation in previous years, especially last year, they had an ideal list of what they want in return for Zach Lavine, which included all-star caliber players, top draft picks, stuff like that, because he's a max contract player, which rightfully so he did earn. The problem is the contract is egregiously big because you're talking about 250 million, right? So he's over 200 million. It's a fresh contract. He just started getting into that
Mm-hmm.
contract, so that's a lot for another team to take on. And on top of that, Zach Lavine at this present moment, talent-wise, is top tier, but he's not moving the needle in your win column because otherwise these other general managers will be more intrigued in getting them to their team, especially the contenders. So because of that, all that factors into you weren't going to make any progress with Zach Lavine.
Right.
I think this offseason is going to be different because the Bulls are lowering their price. They're saying at this point, we'll take anything. We'll do whatever it takes to get him to go. But like at the end of the day, we'll take on expiring contracts, whatever the case may be. Just to get him off the books. Here you go. And when you do that, and you're that open to that, that tells me you're in some cases trying to do rebuilding on the fly because you still don't know what you're going to do with DeMar DeRozan, and you got Vucevic there for another 2 years, for another year or two. So you got to figure out how
Lonzo's getting 21 mil this year.
right.
Like,
Lonzo is getting 21 million, and at this point, if they're not going to stretch and waive him or medically leave, whatever the case may be, you're expecting him to play on the floor, which means it's possible, but the dude hasn't played in 3 years.
what does that even look like?
You don't know what that's going to look like. So because of that, I think they're really pretty much trying to get as much space as they possibly can to figure out how to maneuver that. The best way to do that, you need to take on expiring contract deals. Mm-hmm. And you also got to be willing to attach assets to the Zach Lavine trade so that way you can get some sort of asset in return.
Right.
Because that contract is so big. So if you're going to trade Zach, you're probably going to have to trade someone like an Alex Caruso to go with it. And I know that hurts Bulls Nation. It hurts it to the core because Alex Caruso is the embodiment.
It's the white Michael Jordan. I mean, what do we... Caruso?
From a fan love perspective, absolutely, right?
Goat.
But at the end of the day, you know, he's your best valuable asset. He just made another all defense team. You know, his contract is team friendly.
Right.
What else do you expect? Contenders are going to knock on the door if you want to get Alex Caruso on your team. Yeah. So that's the only really trade piece that you have that brings value. And
so I want to ask you this though, because it's something that I have found to be an issue when we talk about packaging those. And I'm not saying it has to be those two specifically. There's other assets that you could. I thought at some point I thought you could package Kobe and Zach, you know, before last year, obviously when he took off. But now I'm like, man, God bless, because if I was GM, fired immediately. But you know, I think the problem is when a contending team already has great things put together, it's easy to say, hey, we'll give you a 2027 first for Alex Caruso. Okay, cool. 2K trade. Shout out Ronnie. You know, we're making it happen. The problem is if you're attaching Lavine to that, they have to make up for 50 she's going to be making annually throughout the next several years. So that to me is an issue because if you're the Golden State Warriors, and let's say Klay Thompson isn't even a part of this conversation, but if you already have Klay and Curry and Wiggins and Draymond all on big contracts, I can't afford to. I could take in Caruso. I can't afford to take in Zach. And not only can I not afford to take in Zach, you might just not want him to fit that piece. Now, there's teams like the Detroit Pistons, who we know throughout, you know, kind of towards last year, towards the trade deadline, there were whispers that Monty Williams and company were interested in pairing Cade Cunningham and Zach Lavine together. The only problem with that is they don't have the contracts to be able to make that work outside of maybe Bogdanovich, Isaiah Stewart, and a couple others. So I kind of like the understanding of that. But then it's like, what are you really getting in return? And I think it was you and I I was talking to you the other day about it. If I'm not mistaken, I was saying you got to go the Philly route. You know, it was me, you, and Chaz. We were talking to Chaz Franklin, Philly native. Shout out Chaz, Marquise finest. But man, it was basically like, I loved what Philly did with James Harden. They said, listen, it is what it is. We aren't going to get multiple first-round picks for him back, but we can get 1 year expiring deals, and we can free up a max slot in the offseason to be able to acquire somebody like LeBron James, somebody like Donovan Mitchell, somebody like Pascal or OG, somebody to pair up with Maxey and Embiid. That, to me, is where the Chicago Bulls need to be. Now, if I'm the Bulls, listen, I love DeMar. I got the little Funko right here. I want you to know. I mean, DeMar has the mid-range guy, the king of the fourth quarter. He's done his thing for years, and that was even before he was repping the Chicago Bulls uniform, the king of Compton. I'm a huge DeMar DeRozan fan. But with that being said, if the rumors are true that you're thinking about paying him 2-3 year deal, $40-50 million per year, sit on it, bro. Like, I'm good on that. I'm cool off it, bro. Like, I don't need this in my life right now. I will literally lose my mind if we have $100 million per year tied in Zach Lavine and DeMar DeRozan, and then a little extra 20 ball for Lonzo Ball, just so he can just show up every couple of games and show us what outfit he's got on today, because he's not playing a fucking lick. You're crazy. Man said he's still at 70%. Golly. But, you know, I think, man, in all seriousness, I think if you're the Bulls, you have to look at yourself in the eyes and say, I free up damn near $100 million per year in not bringing back DeMar DeRozan and trading away Zach Lavine. That long term If you're still the Chicago Bulls, which Arturis believes he is, with Mark Eversley believes he is, you did it once. You got DeMar to come here. You got Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball and Vooch to extend. You got these guys to come here. And let's be real, Josh. I mean, it was hard to bring in legitimate young stars for a while. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Garpax couldn't do it for D Rose. I mean, the best we got was Carlos Boozer,
Yep.
D Wade, Carmelo Anthony,
Yep.
LeBron James, Chris Bosh. Couldn't get any of them. Got Carlos fucking Boozer. Like, what are we talking about? So,
Yep.
like, I think for me, at the end of the day, if you believe in what you're doing, if you believe in Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu, continue to let them grow. I don't know what happens with Patrick Williams, because at the beginning of the year, there were rumors he wanted a $200 million contract. I don't know the validity to that. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if that ever got debunked. And it's just, I don't know what his market's going to look like. So I would welcome Patrick Williams back, especially if DeMar and Zach weren't on the team. But for you, face of Chicago Bulls basketball, do you believe Kobe White can handle that fully if guys like DeMar and Zach are out the building?
I think they wouldn't have a choice,
Sure.
because at the end of the day, it's very evident that if you really want to move forward and take this franchise in a better position than it is now, you have to rebuild. You have to rebuild. The core has done it's run its course. They've done its job. They've done the best that they can do, but it's not getting anywhere. And the crazy part about this is they had the best chance of doing it literally last offseason. You did not have to re-sign Vucevic to that 3-year deal, but yet you did it anyways,
No.
right? So now they feel obligated. Okay, if Vucevic's here, we got to bring DeMar back. It's kind of a given. You have no choice but to do that. That's why DeMar's like, oh, I'd love to stay here, because he knows he has the ball in his hands. The ball's in his hands, right? So because of that, the reality is you just got to rebuild. You got to let it go. And I don't think they will, so obviously they won't. But if you want to talk about entertaining basketball, Kobe White's entertaining to watch.
Mm-hmm.
When Patrick Williams actually has the ball and the free reins to do what he wants to do, he was giving you 15 a game.
Yeah,
he can actually do that. As especially if he's continuing to improve. Ayo, he's great. He's for especially where we got him as a second round pick. He's very polished and has grown into
Chicago's own.
Chicago's own. It's a great narrative. You want to talk about selling tickets? That's going to sell tickets. That's going to help sell tickets. So I wouldn't say the Bulls would be in a completely bad position if he was to rebuild. If anything, you open up the door for maybe one bad year, and then you look at next year's draft class. Who's going to be at the top of next year's draft class? Cooper Flag. I think I want to have Cooper Flag with Kobe White in a pick and roll situation in Chicago if that was an ideal situation. That would be nasty. So I'm just saying there are options that they could go with, and they easily could have went with that.
Yeah.
But they are married to their plan A, knowing that at the end of the day they never had a plan B, C, D, E, F, or G, all the way down to literally elemental P to Z. They just don't have any of that. They're literally stuck on their plan A. Their plan A from the jump was, we are going to make this work with this core group of people that live up the memo of what we want, which is versatile offense and defense. That's great.
Right.
But there is some loopholes to that. And it wasn't just from the player side. We saw it from the coaching side too. So it's so many factors that the Bulls have to consider when you talk about moving in the direction they want to move. Problem is, I don't think they even thought about it.
No,
because they're so
not once.
And what they want to do, that you can't sit here and tell me that at the table they thought about, well, if Zach don't want to be here, and we already given this thing with DeMar and Vooch, for two years already, and it's not working out. Yeah, maybe we should probably blow this up at this time and seek a different direction and really get rid of Zach, get whatever we can, get the trade value back from Alex Caruso, and just completely rebuild. Give us a year to be bad. We can look like the Houston Rockets or the Detroit Pistons for a year. And then guess what? We can at least be a top 2, top 3 pick in the draft because we sucked that bad, and put us in the running for someone like a Cooper Flag.
But here's the problem though with everything you're saying right now, right? I love it. I'm here for it. Cooper Flag, oh my God. I'm in there like swimwear every single night I'm going to the Bulls game because I'm a huge fan of the kid. Here's the problem. Do we even own that pick? Because here's my
That's
problem as a
true.
Bulls fan. I honest to God, you know how big of a fan I am in the draft and just especially minor league baseball. I mean, I'm a whore for it. I live
Mhm.
off of development. I live off of the G League. I love. We were just talking about Windy City Bulls hoops. Stay in tune. Josh and I got something dope in the work. You'll see. But with that being said, man, I mean, we're just handing out picks. We're just handing out
Yeah,
picks like they're hotcakes. I mean, we haven't had a legitimate first round pick in quite some time. Dalen Terry was our last first round pick. I mean, what do we
yeah,
like?
Taylor
You know what
Terry.
I mean? This year we're at number 11, which is a great transition. Matas, I believe is how you say his name, is
Hmm.
kind of the guy at their highest board right now.
Yeah.
There's rumors they might trade up in let's call it for what it is, the weakest draft class in NBA history. The Chicago Bulls might trade up. So I
Right.
mean, doubt they're trading up to number one with Atlanta. You know,
Hmm.
Asar is there. There's a couple guys there. Knowing the Bulls, they'll trade up and get Bronny James. No, but in all seriousness, man, like we're sitting at number 11 right now.
Yeah.
I want to package a question with a question, if you don't mind. I know it's a lot, but
Okay.
it's
Double wrap the gift. Come on.
gotta. Jimmy Butler was traded on draft night for the number 7 overall pick, which turned into Laurie Marketing, Chris Dunn, and a torn ACL recovering Zach Lavine. Do you see a full circle moment where a recovering from a knee injury Zach Lavine is traded on draft night to get up in the top 7 alongside maybe someone else? I don't know who we get for that pick, but there's rumors the Bulls could trade up. Do you think in that trade up, Zach Lavine would have to be a part of it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you got to make room for your future. Your future is not Zach Lavine. And that's their biggest priority. Their biggest priority this offseason is literally to get Zach Lavine off the books, to get him out of here, ship him out of town. They don't even care where at this point. They literally just want him gone. So because of that, of course, any trader you talking about trying to get to the top 5, especially when you talk about the roster lineup as far as which team is picking, they're gonna ask about Zach Lavine. They're gonna ask about his injury history. Is his foot healing? You know, how is his knee doing? They're gonna ask about, the money and things of that sort, which I think won't be too much of an issue now, considering the fact that we're about to have this new media rights deal. They're gonna recoup a lot of that, money, and the salary cap's gonna rise. So I think the teams will be more okay and more open to that. But at the end of the day, the Bulls have to choose a direction. If you're trading up in the draft to select someone that you feel is worthy of a top 10 pick or above, that means you are telling the franchise that we're kind of starting this redirection of a rebuild, because you have to give up so much to even get into the top 5.
Right.
And that something that the Bulls want to do? Probably not at this point, because they don't know what direction they really want to go. If you're talking about signing DeMar DeRozan and bringing back Vucevic and Alex Caruso, you're talking about a team that's not trying to contend, but be relevant and go to
Right.
the playoffs. This NBA draft this year does not have anyone of that caliber that can help move the needle and make your team that much better.
Sure. And maybe to your point too, maybe there is someone. Maybe let's say for the sake of argument, somebody in this draft is going to prove everybody wrong. Say he's one of the GOATs. Say he's a top 15, top 20 player in the league 2-3 years from now. My problem with the Chicago Bulls and their plan with their draft capital right now is if you trade up and
Mhm.
even if Zach is gone, Kobe White, DeMar DeRozan, Lonzo Ball, Nikola Vucevic, etc., Patrick Williams, we could do it all day. That key word right there was Patrick Williams. Patrick Williams, who was coming off the bench at Florida State, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken, never got an opportunity to develop in the NBA as a number 1 option, never got the opportunity to see the court every single night. Now, obviously, wrist injuries and other lingering injuries have been a huge component to that. But one of the biggest flaws for me in the Patrick Williams experiment was you have so many chefs in the kitchen between Zach Lavine, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, and even to later date, Kobe White, who
Yeah.
exceeds him already. And it's like Lonzo Ball at that time as well. Patrick Williams never got an opportunity to grow and flourish because he was such a small piece to a unit that was already cohesively coming together. If you do that again, it's basically, even if Patrick is on the team or not, I don't see a world where whatever guy, whether it's Matas or whoever, I want to pray I'm saying his name correctly. I don't want to disrespect him, especially if he's a future Bull. So someone in the comments let me know. Is it Matas? Matas, I believe. Um, but if we do draft somebody like that, are you going to be taken seriously in the development of your career? Because Kobe White off to a slow start, because I watched Kobe White every single game at UNC. I was a
Yeah.
UNC Tar Heel fan in high school and going into college, and I just loved what he brought to the game, but I never saw him as a point guard coming out of the gate. I thought that was something that would need to be developed over time to be a two-way, kind of like a true Holiday,
Yeah.
but less defense. But Jim Boylan automatically, hey, you're the starting point guard for the Chicago Bulls. Why are we even doing this? Why are we even having that conversation? Like, Chris Dunn is here, other guys are here. Like, we don't need to do this. And nope, you make them do it, and it hindered his development for several years. And Billy
Mm-hmm.
Donovan has slowly worked with him. And I appreciate that for never giving up on someone like him. They could have rocked out with Io, when Io was taken off for a little bit at the end of
Yeah.
2021, 2022. But, I just, to your point, I don't trust you drafting someone in the top 5, and the inability of this organization in developing young players over the last few years. I mean, no disrespect, because I love his game. And if Zach Lavine is moved, I would love to see him get more tick. I would love to see him get some flowers and more playing time. Dalen Terry has been nothing more than a social media meme for the Bulls social media team. Period. I mean, I see him all the time joking around in post game with DeMar, and he's so full of life. He's so full of energy. That's great. I
Yeah.
have yet to see them give him full opportunity to have success, even on the bench, even without Zach Lavine and Lonzo Ball.
Yeah.
Dalen Terry plays 5 minutes a game at best, and that's if somehow, some way we're blowing him out or we're getting blown out, which is far more realistic. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Josh, do you trust this organization to develop someone if we move up in the top 10?
I'm be honest with you, it's kind of half and half. And the reason why is because the experiments. You drafted Dalen Terry, and like you mentioned, Dalen Terry has not progressed. In a lot of ways, he's actually regressed from when he entered into the league, because Io has surpassed him. So that's that experiment. But you got to look at someone like a Kobe White, who literally was honestly out the door. And then Billy Donovan came in. They hired the shooting coach, who obviously former DePaul Blue Demon. Shout out to my DePaul Blue Demons out there. And lo and behold, transforms Kobe White, and Kobe White was vocal about I keep forgetting the coach's name, but how essential that shooting coach was to improving his jump shot and making his jump shot that much more lethal. If someone like Kobe White, who was supposed to be the most improved player of the year, becomes that vocal about what the Bulls are doing in that regard, there has to be some truth behind the work ethic that if these other players catch on, they can have that same improvement. They can have that same leaping ability.
Even Io, to that point, had a
Even
great jump
Io,
this year as well.
exactly. But the problem is who wants it that bad, right? It's all about the players' motives. Unfortunately, Dan Terry hasn't reached that level, but Io and Kobe have, and they've improved in such a way to where the team has retained them in the way that they've retained them. So I think there is a glimpse of hope with that. There's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel if they were to make this type of move. But at the end of the day, what are your expectations, though? If your expectations are this top 5 pick is going to lead us to the promised land or help lead us to the promised land, that promise is long gone. It's shot, because that ain't happening. You don't have the infrastructure for that. But if you're thinking you bring them in and you start treating him like a Patrick Williams, where he doesn't have to produce right away, but slowly but surely over time we can, if the opportunities present itself, then maybe you have a chance. On top of that, though, the underlying factor with that is how big of a price you're willing to pay for that type of talent to not be utilized or developed, because that's where Patrick Williams comes in. Right. Patrick Williams, if he's up for a contract and he's thinking about obviously asking for $200 million, he hasn't done $200 million worth of work. That's just the facts, right? But if you're going in a direction of where you can give him a chance, he could be actually a vital piece to your franchise, which I believe if you were to rebuild, he will. Then okay, he might be worth that money. It's so many different factors and layers that boil down to, at the end of the day, which direction the franchise needs to go. Where do they want to go? And you already know they have no clue where they want to go.
Right.
They're literally chickens running with their heads cut off.
They want to win a championship, but they don't know how to get there. You know what I mean? And it's like everyone says that, and that's okay. You know, every kid, if you coach any AAU teams, if you coach any Pee Wee ball, I want to go to the NFL. I want to win an NBA championship. I want to dunk. Okay, but how are you going to get there?
Exactly.
I don't know. Well, exactly. And first of all, really quick, I want to take a quick break real quick and say something before we get out of here. Josh, this is love right here. This is something I never expected I would see. This is something that I think is incredible. We got our guy Brooklyn in the comments. He said, yeah, he's here right now. He said, what's good, fellas? I'm here for the sky. If y'all talking Bulls, I'm out. That right there. That right there is so love to me. Covering the Chicago Sky the last 4 years as media. I mean, for years,
Yeah.
nothing. You know what I mean? For years, it's man, no one cares. Talk about the Bulls. No one. And now we're getting asked to talk about the Sky and not the Bull. Josh, I said, well, what a time to be alive, brother. What a time to be alive. It's genuine love. Brooklyn, we appreciate you being there. We're going to be doing a Chicago Sky show tomorrow night, breaking everything down, what we've seen the last couple of days. Camila Cardoso and company. We would have post-game interviews to send you guys, but I don't know what happened to the video there. It just never got posted. But it is what it is. But with that being said, one of our last topics before we get out of here, I got a tattoo appointment at 6. I'm gonna send Josh the final product. I think you're gonna like it. It's cooking. I got some Mamba mentality going on.
Okay.
We got some cooking, something cooking. But this question I hate because it's one I've been talking about with other fans from other organizations, and the free agency conversation is always my favorite because you got some guys like my guy Jerm, we're getting LeBron. You know what I mean? We got some guys in LA saying they're getting everybody. The Bulls this year in free agency, what are you looking to see? What do you want from this organization? And I know that's kind of a broad question because first you got to find out what happens to Zach. Then you got to find out what happens with DeMar. But who are some guys that you want to retain? I guess I'll put it that way. Who do you want back on the Chicago Bulls roster to start the 2024-2025 season? And who are some players that realistically we can expect them going after?
That's a tough question because me personally, even though they didn't get a lot of playing time, even though they had some ups and downs, the additions you did bring last year with Torrey Craig and Javon Carter, they were essential to establishing the defensive side of the ball and making the Bulls at one point a top defense in the league. You got to give them credit for that. And you got to love the fact that when they have that type of veteran presence around them, they do thrive and become better. So I do like those guys. I would like to see those guys come back, ideally, especially with Alex Caruso and the footprint that he's led with this team. But I'm also down for everybody just being gone and start fresh. Because they're not going to lead you to championship aspirations.
Right.
I do know one thing, that at the end of the day, they need 3-point shooting. We talked about it before. They desperately need someone to shoot the 3-point jump shot. And what they're realizing is it costs for good quality. It costs to be the boss. If you want good 3-point shooting, you want a top 3-point shooter, you're going to have to open up the bag. Prime example is Max Strus. Chicago guy, went to Lewis University as well as DePaul. Shout out to my Blue Demon. But he came from Miami, became an essential piece to that team that went to the NBA Finals, shot close to 40% from 3 or above. Guess what? He got a $60 to $80 million deal. I mean, you're gonna have to pay that type of price for top quality shooting. And there's 2 players that in this offseason potentially could help you with that. If I'm the Bulls, I gotta look at Buddy Hield. His 3-point shooting, his ability to score the ball, even though he did lay a bunch of eggs in the playoffs this past season.
At least he got there. You know what I mean?
He got there, right? He did eventually get there, and he can knock down the 3. He's one of the best 3-point shooters / scorers when you talk about a combination offensively in the league. You gotta look at that. You also gotta look at someone like a Caleb Martin. Caleb Martin from Miami, who in my belief, played above his role. He
Mhm.
over exceeded expectations as a role player over in Miami. But he is someone that was essential to the Miami Heat when they went to the NBA Finals as well. He had a monster game. I want either game 5 or game 6 when he was with the Miami Heat
I
against
think
the
it was
Boston
6.
Celtics.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
game 6. That literally helped them get over the hump and led Jimmy Butler to do what he needed to do in game 7.
Mhm.
So those are two guys for sure that I would think if you're talking about 3-point shooting, they may be out of my price range, but I got to call. I got to make
Right,
a call because I'm
right.
tired of sitting at the bottom half or the bottom 5 at least of 3-point shooting in the league and not going nowhere. That is the name of the game in the league. Yes, you have your mid range, and mid range has made its comebacks, but the name of the game is getting up a lot of as many threes as you possibly can,
No, for
and
sure.
you need them. You need the team to knock them down. You can't be bottom 5 in each of your last 3 seasons of 3-point shooting. So that has to change, and I think that's the direction I would go if I was in their shoes to see how can we improve our 3-point shooting, defense, presence, and stuff like that. That's there. Point guard, you got Lonzo Ball coming back. Okay, fine. You have something that can at least fill a little bit of that void. But you got to get someone that can knock down that 3-point jump shot.
I'm with you. I'm with you. And I also think for me, a free agency move that not only as a fan do I want to see because he's one of my favorite big men of this era, but just because I think the Andre Drummonds, the Tristan Thompsons,
Yeah,
I mean, we can do this all day long of bigs that the Chicago Bulls have tried to bring in that don't complement each other. I want to see them make a move for Steven Adams, if possible. If you get Zach Lavine off the books, I see the Houston Rockets, a 1 year, $12 million deal. Hey, let me get that, bro. Let me get that real quick. If we're running this back, if we have to, I need something more reliable every single night than Andre Drummond. And I love Dre, but I just think he's over it. I think he's over the Bulls experiment. I think he wants to win a championship, and
yeah,
rightfully so. I don't see him coming back. I know. Listen, at the end of the day, Andre Drummond giving you 20 and 15 over 15 games for what? $5 million that
off
season.
the bench. On top of that,
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? It's a lot better than Steven Adams coming off of a torn, was it a torn Achilles for
yeah,
$12 million at the age of 30 something. I get it. But, I understand who Steven Adams is. I
mhm,
understand what role he understands he is at in this point in his career. Andre Drummond is ready for a championship. Period. I believe he is going to go somewhere to try to go win one. I hope it's Dallas. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be really interesting to see how the Bulls continue to bring success around Nikola Vucevic, who's digressed in some time. And, the injury bug is kind of hitting him a little bit. So I'm curious to see how that pans out, curious to see how everything goes. 3-point shooting, like you said, I don't care who it is, bring it in. Like
yeah,
if you're shooting over 36%, which is the average, I'll take it. You know what I mean? Like I will take it. I have no issue with it. And a big one for me is Patrick Williams. Patrick
yeah.
Williams. Listen, if you're gonna sell me on anything in this life, in with this organization at this point in time, whether it's Zach Lavine or DeMar DeRozan or how Alex Caruso should have been first team all defense. I'm always say that in every single pod. Somehow, some way, no guard was picked, but you have a squad. You have a decent piece around Zach Lavine and DeMar DeRozan. Yeah, you could even say the other way around. Don't ignore the 21-year-old who still has the world ahead of him. If you're going to bet on anybody, it's Patrick Williams. I'm not betting on the guys 30 and above. I'm not betting
Mm,
on the 28, 29-year-olds who don't want to be here or the Alex Caruso who might not be here come next season. You know what I mean? Like for me, Patrick Williams is key because we've seen time and time again the Jimmy Butlers of the world, the Giannis Antetokounmpos, the Nikola Jokic's. I mean, not everybody just comes out of the gates ready to play 40 minutes a game. I believe Patrick Williams can be something. I don't know what that is quite yet, but
mhm,
I think he's decent at a lot of things if he just works on being great at one thing or even just overall just make like you said, Kobe White, he took the criticism, he heard the noise, he listened. Hey, let's get in the lab, let's get to work. If Patrick Williams does the same thing, this is a very different looking team if you have a young Kobe White, a young Io DeSumo, and a young Patrick Williams alongside DeMar,
yeah.
Lonzo Ball, Zach Lavine, Nikola Vucevic. So that's where I'm at. But Josh, I appreciate you being here today, man. Appreciate you coming through. Real quick, before we get out of here, can you just pump out where everybody can find you, your articles that I'm always leaning over and checking out what you're writing at Skytown? What you got going on?
Man, you can follow all my stuff on Instagram and Twitter, Josh M. Hicks Media. On their daily news. We're all over the place. Got a lot of big stuff coming your way, especially more Sky content, of course. So definitely be on a checkout for that. But you can find all my work there, man.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you, man. Again, appreciate you guys tuning in today. This is Mike Hughes, aka The Shy Kid. You are listening to The Shy Kid podcast presented by Give Us a Shot Network. So make sure you give us a like, give us a follow. You can always find so many amazing shows from WNBA, NBA, MLB, the Masters. I don't know nothing about golf, but they do a great job. NFL and so much more. You don't always have to look at my ugly mug. Until then, I'll check y'all out later. Peace. See you, baby.
Yes, sir.